getting back to Donald Trump, effort posting through this process, the deal that we're making with Iran will be far better than the JCPOA, commonly referred to as the Iran nuclear deal, penned by Barack Hussein Obama and Sleepy Joe Biden. One of the worst deals ever made, having to do with the security of our country. It was guaranteed. It was a guaranteed road to a nuclear weapon, which will not and cannot happen with the deal we're working on. One thing that's really funny about this, Democrats don't even raise this point, because many Democrats that are in leadership roles, like Chuck Schumer, for example, were directly opposed to the JCPOA at the time because, come on, let's be real. Again, Chuck Schumer cares about Israel a whole lot more than he cares about Democratic Party, his own constituents, American democracy, yada, yada, yada. All of that is secondary. Don't take my word for it. Take Chucky Boy's own word for it, right? He was in opposition to the JCPOA at the time. So that's part of the reason why many of the Democrats in power don't bring up the fact that there was a successful deal that was implemented that Donald Trump destroyed, the JCPOA. Okay? Because Israel didn't like the JCPOA. Israel hated it so much that Benjamin Netanyahu came to America to speak in front of Congress. Many Democrats didn't attend that speech, by the way, because it was a symbolic speech to say fuck you to Barack Obama, where he complained about Barack Obama in the halls of Congress. Okay? He gave a State of the Union as the real president of the United States of America when Barack Obama was in the process of implementing the JCPOA. Many of you are probably oblivious to this reality. It happened decades ago. You probably don't remember. You probably didn't know. But that has been the case, okay? So if you're confused as to why many Democrats don't raise the point that there was a successful implementation of a denuclearization agreement with Iran through not war, but through the negotiations process, it's because they too are pro-Israel. But what's interesting about it is now Trump is bringing up the JCPOA, which will force the hand of Democrats to be, oppositional to Trump. Now they might be forced to bring up the JCPOA to say, hey, Barack Obama did actually see a decent amount of success here. It was guaranteed road to a nuclear weapon, which will not and cannot happen with the deal we're working on. They actually gave $1.7 billion in green cash, loaded onto a Boeing 757, and flown to Iran for the Iranian leadership to spend any way they saw fit. He emptied out all the cash in the banks in D.C., Virginia, and Maryland. Those bankers said they'd never seen anything like it before. In addition to hundreds of billions of dollars was paid to Iran. If I did not terminate that deal, nuclear weapons would have been used on Israel and all over the Middle East, including our cherished U.S. military bases. The fake news, like lightweight Washington Post journalist David Ignatius, loves to talk about the JCPOA, knowing that it was dangerous and a complete embarrassment to our country. If a deal happens under Trump, it will guarantee peace, security, safety, not only for Israel and the Middle East, but for Europe, America, and elsewhere. It will be something that the entire world will be proud of instead of years of embarrassment and humiliation that we have been forced to suffer due to incompetent and cowardly leadership President Donald J. Trump. Again, another funny part about this is that Donald Trump, as a part of the current ceasefire negotiations that he begged Iran to with the American admin, is releasing $20 million, not $1.7 billion of green cash, but $20 billion. Joe Biden unfroze $6 billion. Barack Obama unfroze $1.7 billion. Donald Trump is slated to unfreeze $20 billion. Now, some of that is the Brandon inflation, okay? Joe Brandon, he did inflation. But I wish more Democrats would communicate that this was a far better alternative. Diplomacy was always a far better alternative to dealing with Iran than whatever the fuck we're doing currently. Gregory Bruce says, but if you want to see some clarity as to why the U.S. gave Iran $1.7 billion in 2016 as a part of the JCPOA, here's a good explainer. The money was a part of the pre-revolution agreement that was still lingering in arbitration. The reason it was such a large sum was the accumulated interest. He then follows this up with a second effort post. And when our boy is writing these effort posts, know that he is suffering, okay? Constantly chirping about Iran now. He is constantly chirping about how Israel doesn't own me. I'm not dominated by Israel. Don't say that. Don't say that Benjamin Netanyahu dominates me. Don't you say it. I am not blackmailed. Oh my God, how many fucking posts has he had? It's unbelievable. Trump compares his war in Iran to World War II and calls Democrats traitors. We won't let the weak and pathetic Democrats traitors all belittle the accomplishments of our military and the Trump administration. Oh, he's doing the thing where he's like, oh, you're not yelling at me. You're yelling at our beautiful military. You must hate America. It doesn't really work when you're Trump, though. Okay. At this point, Trump saying, you're not yelling at me. You're yelling at our beautiful military. Oh, I bet I bet you wouldn't say that to my troops' face, is kind of like if Trump came out and was like, oh, you're not yelling at me, you're yelling at the Pope, actually. You're not yelling at me, you're yelling at all good Catholics at this point. I was simply highlighting the beauties of Catholicism. Like, everybody knows that you're a madman. Well, not everybody. 70% of the country knows you're a fucking madman, okay? 30% think everything that you're saying is great and awesome, and they believe it, even if you contradict yourself in the same sentence, as he does with regular frequency. Trump says the Democrats are doing everything possible to hurt the very strong position we are in with respect to Iran. Despite World War I lasting 4 years, 3 months, and 14 days, World War II lasting 6 years and 1 day, the Korean War lasting 3 years and 1 month and 2 days, the Vietnam War lasting 19 years, 5 months, and 29 days, and Iraq lasting 8 years, 8 months, and 28 days, they like to say that I promised 6 weeks to defeat Iran. And actually, from the military standpoint, it was far faster than that. But I'm not going to let them rush the United States into making a deal that is not as good as it could have been. I read the fake news saying that I'm under pressure to make a deal. This is not true. At this point, when Donald Trump claims something is not true, just know that it's definitely true. He is crashing the fuck out right now. It is very funny. I am under no pressure whatsoever, although it will all happen relatively quickly. Time is not my adversary. Again, objectively false. In the game of attrition, Iran, every day that passes by that the Strait of Hormuz remains closed is a day that Iran gains more leverage and America loses more leverage, which is why the double blockade was very stupid. The double blockade was unbelievably stupid for this reason, because the whole point of the blockade is that it benefits Iran and it harms the interests of capital and therefore harms America standing around the world. The only thing that matters is that we finally, after 47 years, straighten out the mess that other presidents let happen because they didn't have the courage or foresight to do what had to be done with respect to Iran. We're in it, and it will be done right, and we won't let the weak and pathetic Democrats, traitors all, who for years have been talking about the dangers of Iran and that something has to be done, but now, since I'm the one doing it, belittle the accomplishments of our military and the Trump administration. He does kind of have a point there. Democrats have, foolishly, being the Israel first party that they are, just like the Republicans, have for years said that Iran presents a constant danger, a constant threat. If Democrats were saying the truth throughout that process, right now they would have a stronger position. They still have a fairly strong position. They're not even leaning into it because they're fucking assholes, but, you know, that's besides the point. I did Venezuela. Remember Venezuela? It was so good. In my first term, I built the greatest military our country has ever seen, including adding Space Force. In my second term, I am properly and judiciously using our military to solve problems left to us by others of far less understanding or competence. Make America great again, President Donald J. Trump. Axios reports he's over it. Axios reports he's over it. Trump wants it done. He doesn't like Iran holding control over the Strait over the Middle East. He doesn't want to fight anymore, but he will if he feels he has to, an administration official tells Axios. Well, why did you begin it if you weren't capable of finishing it? You know, I'm bored now. It's lame. It's woke and gay. I don't care about Iran no more. Oh, wonderful stuff. There's even more, by the way. A third tweet has hit the timeline. This one hitting the Pentagon, I guess. I'm winning a war by a lot. Things are going very well. Our military has been amazing. And if you read the fake news, like the failing New York Times, the absolutely horrendous and disgusting Wall Street Journal, or the now almost defunct, fortunately, Washington Post, you would actually think we are losing the war. The enemy is confused because they get these same media reports, and yet they realize their Navy has been completely wiped out. Their Air Force is gone onto darker runways. They have no anti-missile or anti-airplane equipment. Their former leaders are mostly gone, in parentheses. This has been, in addition to everything else, regime change. And perhaps most important of all, the blockade, which we will not take off until there is a deal, is absolutely destroying Iran. They are losing $500 million a day. An unsustainable number, even in the short run. The anti-America fake news media is rooting for Iran to win, but it's not going to happen because I'm in charge. Just like these unpatriotic people used every ounce of their limited strength to fight me in the election, they continue to do so with Iran. The result will be the same. It already is. President Donald J. Trump. Wait, he has another one? The Iranian leadership has forced hundreds of ships towards the United States, mostly Texas, Louisiana, and Alaska, to get their oil. Thank you very much, President Donald J. Trump. Even just our burn rate as opposed to Iran, if we're taking what he's saying seriously, and like Iran is losing 500 million a day, we're losing 2 billion a day. And that's just like our military expenditure. Okay? So no, I think meat for meat, you know, they're doing a lot better. They're going ban for ban. Yeah. I like that Donald Trump's last couple of posts has just been, don't tell anyone in the news. Do not put it in the newspaper that I am mad. Oh, meanwhile, the U.S. has suspended all funding and security coordination with Iraq's government and suspended dollar shipments to Iraq's central banking system, Al-Haddad. You know, we're also making Iraq, we're punishing the Iraqi population for the successful militia movement in Iraq that has actively purged the national boundaries of U.S. troops. So we're using whatever kind of leverage we have over Iraq. Ro Khanna said the thing that I've been saying, thank God. Barack Obama did his homework. He engaged in statesmanship that left America safer and built a coalition to prevent Iran from having enriched uranium. All Trump did is listen to Netanyahu. That's his entire foreign policy. And that is why Donald Trump posted this tantrum this morning, claiming Israel has no control over his decision-making because he was watching Maria Bartiromo. And he was watching our boy, Ro Khanna, go on Maria Bartiromo and say the truth. Because, like, if you are invested in ensuring that Iran never has enriched uranium that's capable of building a nuclear weapon, then Barack Obama did it. I have many criticisms of Barack Obama. Many criticisms of Barack Obama. However, this was one of the things that he did right. This and Cuba were the two major points of credit that I give Barack Obama all the time as it pertains to his foreign policy. Washington is a part of his fighting oligarchy tour. Senator Bernie Sanders is heading to Ohio, Minnesota, and Michigan for May 1st to May 3rd, where he will hold a series of rallies with U.S. Michigan U.S. Senate candidate Dr. Abdullah Syed, Minnesota U.S. candidate Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan, and U.S. candidate Brian Poindexter, a union iron worker running in Ohio's 7th congressional district. Hell fucking yeah. That's going to be awesome. Oh my God, that's going to be so sick. Very excited about that. Let's get back to Morning Joe. I have other stuff going on in the same time frame with other candidates, so I don't know if I'll be able to go to any of those things. Maybe the Michigan one potentially. Who knows?
Welcome back. The Wall Street Journal is out with new reporting from behind the scenes at the White House entitled, "Despite his public bravado, President Trump is grappling with his own fears regarding Iran." According to the Journal, the operation to extract 2 airmen whose jet was shot down over Iran this month was followed by hours of the president screaming at aides, quote, "Images of the 1979 Iranian hostage crisis, one of the biggest international policy failures of a presidency in recent times, had been looming large in his mind." The paper reports the president is dealing with his own fear about ordering troops into harm's way. Trump has resisted sending American soldiers to take Karg Island, for example, the launch point for 90% of Iran's oil export.
This story is incredible, by the way. That's why he was saying the Wall Street Journal is incredibly corrupt, is the worst newspaper, all this shit. Because this Wall Street Journal piece is unbelievable. I mean, I guess it's super believable if you are paying close attention to how Trump moves. But this kind of like insight into what's going on behind the curtain has been very revealing, and it's basically just complimentary information to the analysis that we've conducted here on the HasanAbi broadcast. It's just, you know, it's a spectacular fuck up, and you see a panicked Trump behind closed doors.
Sports. Well, he was told the mission.
Morning Joe is the best news program on cable TV. Okay, dude, calm the fuck down. All right. It's probably one of the worst. We're not glazing Morning Joe here. We're glazing we're glazing the Wall Street Journal, which is also crazy, but
and the territory's capture
just
would give
this
the U.S.
article.
access to the strait. He worried there would be unacceptably high American casualties. Still, he has made risky pronouncements without input from his national security team, including his post about plans to destroy the Iranian civilization, saying seeming unstable could help spur the Iranians to negotiate. A president who thrives on drama is bringing an even more intense version of his unorthodox, maximalist approach to a new situation, fighting a war. He is veering between belligerent and conciliatory approaches and grappling behind the scenes with just how badly things could go wrong. Joining us now, the co-author of that piece, White House reporter for the Wall Street Journal, Annie Linsky. So, Annie, what else are you hearing about the president's feelings about this behind the scenes? It seems to match pretty well or track pretty well with the way Iran is responding, which anybody with a sense of how things go with Iran is not surprised about.
Yeah, Micah, my colleague Josh Dossie and I set out to try to draw a portrait of the president at war. Donald Trump has had 2 presidencies, but he has never overseen a sustained military campaign like this. And while we, as Americans, have seen his very unique governing style in other aspects of his presidency, legislating, executive orders, and the like, we've never witnessed this type of sort of impulsive and his sort of desire to appear chaotic during wartime. So that was what we were trying to show and the reporting target that we had for this piece.
Annie,
this is Nixon madman theory. The problem with that, however, is when you match up against another madman, it kind of fucks up your plans. Like, he is definitely demented, and it helps with the unique style of communication. Okay, fuck you, says Fallen Amen. That is far weaker, doesn't have any kind of like, not nuclear arms, but functionally the nuclear weapon of destroying 20% of the oil production and gas production of the entire world, or at least like stopping the transit of 20% of the entire world's energy supply, which is functionally the same as like, being as disruptive as a nuke, right? When you have an enemy that has that capability and they are exercising their power, you kind of can't do the madman theory, right? Because the madman theory only works when you're posturing about like utilizing nuclear arms. But if your enemy is also saying like, yeah, we got nukes too, we'll use them. Fuck you. Here's a tactical nuke. All of a sudden, that theory falls apart.
Things I thought was really fascinating about your piece was how there seem to be 2 parallel tracks happening that are not necessarily communicating with each other all the time in the White House. So you've got during the operation to try and rescue the airmen, you've got the security people keeping Donald Trump away from the situation because they thought he might make it more complicated. But then at the same time, you've also got the president on his own track launching truth.
The Nixonian madman theory was the way that Nixon communicated to appear more irrational, willing to use nukes if necessary, in an effort to erode the confidence of his adversaries. Like, oh, he's crazy. Tricky Dick. He's a crazy guy. He's a madman. He could deploy nukes if necessary, right? And that's pretty much what Trump is also trying to do. I mean, he is very Nixon in many ways, not just that. paranoid, willing to erode all norms and all rules. There was never a situation where the opposition also had nukes and were entertaining the utilization of nukes. In this circumstance, Iran's nukes are not actual nuclear arms, but a nuke on global trade, which they have deployed. Political theory commonly associated with U.S. foreign policy, President Nixon and his administration, who tried to make the leaders of hostile communist bloc countries think Nixon was an irrational and volatile person so that they would avoid provoking the U.S. in fear of an unpredictable response. The premise of madman theory is that the appearance of irrationality makes otherwise non-credible threats seem credible. For instance, in an era of mutually assured destruction, threats by a rational leader to escalate to a dispute may seem suicidal and thus easily dismissible by adversaries. However, suicidal threats may seem credible if the leader is believed to be irrational. International relations scholars have been skeptical of madman theory as a strategy for success in coercive bargaining. Prominent madmen such as Nixon, Nikita Khrushchev, Saddam Hussein, Donald Trump, and Muammar Gaddafi failed to win coercive disputes. One difficulty is making others believe you are genuinely a madman. Another difficulty is the inability of a madman to assure others that they will not be punished if they yield to a particular demand. One study found that madman theory is frequently counterproductive, but that it can be effective under certain conditions. Another study found that there are both bargaining advantages and disadvantages to perceived madness. Also, this only works if you're America. That's the other thing. Like you can't really behave in a rogue state manner if you are not America, because America wrote the rules of the globe, right? Your capacity to escalate, and your capacity to behave in an irrational way is only as powerful as your opposition's willingness to abide by those norms. If your opposition, in this case Iran, has already shown their hand and has exercised tremendous leverage over you, then it doesn't fucking matter. It doesn't matter. And that's why when Trump says like, oh, we'll destroy the power plants in Iran, we'll destroy the fucking bridges in Iran, that's a part of his like madman diplomacy in air quotes. But that doesn't stop Iran from controlling the Strait of Hormuz. If anything, that would force Iran to destroy the oil refineries in the region.
Yeah, those tweets, or I should say those Truth Social posts, that took so many people off guard who woke up and read them about ending a civilization, saying, praise be to Allah on Easter Sunday of all days. Those were not tweets that he had even sort of chatted with his national security team about. They read them much the way we did after they were posted. The president did ask his staff about those tweets and said, how are they playing? What am I being criticized? And his staff said, yes, sir, you are. You're facing quite a bit of criticism for them. Some of his members of his national security team read them and weren't as alarmed by them as many others were. They said, look, they felt that he was communicating the way the Iranians do. The Iranians have for years said.
That is literally the opposite of how Iranians communicate. Unless he means like, praise be to Allah, they say that. No, Iranians will always write deep prose. Like they'll be like, they'll slap on like a poetry from like the 13th century. And then they'll be like, this is a surah that we abide by. Like the sword of Ali will fall upon those who disrupt the normal existence, whatever, right? Like Trump is just insane. They're much more romantic with their utilization of prose. They don't do this at all.
From a president, perhaps has not. But you're right, that wasn't something that was being workshopped within the White House. As to that there was a long call that was open when the two airmen were down behind enemy lines, and that is an instance where
this part is crazy. During the combat search and rescue operations, they just kept him out of the room. That's awesome. Okay, they were just like, please don't fuck this up. Sir, Mr. President, we got this handled. Okay, don't worry about it. We got this shit handled, is locked and loaded. Just don't, here's McDonald's burgers. Here's some Lego videos to keep you occupied, sir.
The staff were updating the president frequently, but they didn't want him to be on that line. They were concerned that he was so impatient as he was watching those developments that they didn't have him doing the minute-to-minute call. But to be fair, to be sure, he was being updated regularly in that weekend when those airmen were down.
Jonathan, off of what Andy just said about the president doing this, to speak in a way the Iranians understood, I have heard from Arab leaders in the region, several over the past year, that they actually, I'm just reporting, they actually like the fact, as one told me after these posts, that the mullahs now have to deal with someone who is, quote, crazier than they are.
Dude. Again, these guys, you could say they are, they have a capability of enacting tremendous violence, both at the domestic level and certainly as a part of their foreign policy as a regional actor against countries that are aligned with the United States or aligned at the behest of U.S. and Israeli interests. But to say that these guys are like dangerous and irrational is just not true. It is continuing along with this fucking fantasy. They have always been ready to negotiate with the West to a degree that was unsustainable, naive, and self-destructive. And this isn't new. This has been the case for 20 plus years now, 2 decades.
Diplomats across the region have said he actually thinks like an Arab leader. He doesn't think like an American leader. Donald Trump thinks and talks like the sort of leaders that we grew up with.
Yeah, maybe that's why he's fucking eating shit right now. Okay. Oh yeah. I am an Arab sheik, and I believe Trump is behaving just like us Arab sheiks, famous for having implemented successful acts of diplomacy, famously getting our wishes across all the time. If there's one thing you know, if there's one thing you can point to about Arab diplomacy, it's that it's always been a resounding success.
And if that throws the Iranians off, you Americans may not understand this, but we're totally fine with it, which I found to be fascinating. Yes,
I don't believe this conversation took place. Okay? I don't believe this conversation took place. I'm going to be honest with you. I think Joe is making this up. Sorry. I'm just going to say it. I think Joe is making this up. What Arab leader is calling up Joe, Morning Joe, to be like, we actually love the way that Trump is behaving right now. We didn't want any of our oil and gas shipments to transit out of the Strait of Hormuz at all. We personally love that shit. And also, as you know, we're violent savages. Us Arab leaders, we're violent savages ourselves. So we're very stoked that Donald Trump is behaving like us, the violent savages that we are. Like, who is saying that? Especially when all of the reporting shows that while Saudi Arabia and the UAE were, well, not UAE, but Saudi Arabia was like maybe not fully on board, but kind of on board with like striking Iran and deteriorating their capabilities and like weakening Iran. They weren't on board with like fully destroying Iran because that would lead to a dangerous predicament and unbelievable instability in the region. Maybe the UAE was on board with it, but who cares about what they have to say? Even Even the United Arab Emirates now is saying, even the United Arab Emirates is now saying we have to get financial aid from the United States of America. Otherwise, we're fucked. We're done. Okay? The Emirates are no longer so united, sir. Iran has successfully killed the idea of Dubai, sir. And again, that is a language that Trump understands. When all of the financial deals that they put together, like these mega mergers that the GCC states are putting in tremendous amounts of money into to put together these mega mergers that the Trump family is also benefiting from, all of that is falling apart. All of it. So clearly, they're not super on board with everything that's going on.
You have a problem with it. I have a problem with all of it. That said, even this past week, I heard again, as I've been hearing for a year, he's the only American president that can strike fear in the hearts of Iranians.
Unbelievable cope.
Well, yeah, and I would say, and also in the hearts of everybody that lives in Washington and across America.
Yeah, no question there. White House aides, as Annie reported, anxious at the time. A lot of them since that post have said, well, it worked. Look, they got Iran to agree to the ceasefire. Like, these sets up the table for negotiations, like sort of defending it in retrospect. The madman theory, if you will, that you just outlined, Joe, that it's impossible to predict Trump, so therefore you have to fear the worst. And that's all this was, art of the deal, that stuff. We'll see. But Annie, the other thing that your story illustrates well is, though Trump this time, second term,
Jr., thank you for
far
the
more
10 gifted.
likely to authorize military force than in the first, but he's still hesitant to cross the threshold of deploying ground troops. He's still very...
Dude, only Morning Joe could take this Wall Street Journal article about like how scared and how panicked Trump is and how paranoid Trump is and how his handlers literally need to, how his handlers straight up need to ensure that he's not in the room when like serious military operations are being conducted, and turn it into, it's actually awesome and everyone is so scared. Everyone is so scared that the guy who is controlling the nuclear arms, the nuclear arsenal of the United States of America is out of his fucking mind. And Arab leaders have told me, this is just like us, man. We love this. Keep posting that shit, sir. That's what they're saying, actually. Great. Oh, this is MS Now, by the way. This is supposed to be the liberal news network, by the way. This is supposed to be the most libbed up news network. Thank you, Morning Joe, for finding a way to take this Wall Street Journal article that offers insight to what's happening behind closed doors and turning that madness and chaos into something positive, seemingly, for Trump's art of the deal.
Very nervous about American lives lost in themselves would be...
I swear to God, every crime or lol, are you talking to me? Gotta be a boss to beat the main boss? Are you calling Iran the main boss? Don't you realize that that's an admission of defeat? Every time a Trump supporter comes in here, they just like hit themselves and hurt themselves in confusion. Every time. It's very strange. Why are your haters always so fucking stupid? I mean, because I'm anti-MAGA, I'm anti-fascist, and I think a lot of MAGA are just very dumb. And a lot of people who end up opposing me end up aligning with MAGA and therefore presenting themselves as very dumb.
Terrible, but also the political ramifications of that. So speak to us about that still, that hesitation, and what we could learn from it as we consider what could come next, because the fate of these negotiations is still very much in doubt. Trump may need to escalate further and actually to get this war to close if it can't be done on the negotiating table in Islamabad the next couple of days.
Yeah, I was really struck in talking to some of the people around the president and his advisors and some of his informal advisors, the extent to which he has brought up in conversations Jimmy Carter and how Jimmy Carter's experience in Iran, this exact regime that President Trump has been bombing, But how Jimmy Carter's experience in Iran has loomed large as he's been weighing what to do. And he has even spoken, the president has spoken publicly about this in a March event in Florida. He brought up Jimmy Carter as he was talking about he was ticking off Democratic failures in foreign policy, but he dwelled at length about Jimmy Carter, something that his friends have said and people who have spoken to him have said he has talked about privately as well. So his hesitance on putting troops on the ground is real. He's very concerned about how that would be. He has not been in a position before of sending troops in harm's way in this way. That is not to say he won't do it. And his advisors have been very clear with us that remains on the table. It's not something that they're going to take off. But he has said, troops going to Kyrgyz Island, would they be sitting ducks? Would they all be killed? And that is a very real fear that he has articulated.
And for good reason. And Annie, I couldn't help but notice the picture that accompanied your story, at least when I read it online, had so many parallels with the failed 1980 Operation Eagle Claw, the failed operation to rescue the Iranian hostages back in 1980. Obviously, that parallel haunts the president, doesn't it?
It really does. It's something that we have heard he talks about extensively. And this is a time in his life when he was coming of age. He paid close attention to the news, as we know. But he would be he is one of 7 presidents to be bedeviled by this national security threat that Iran has faced. And he has thought about how other presidents have attempted to handle it and failed. So it is on his mind.
All right, White House reporter for the Wall Street Journal, Annie Linsky, thank you very much for your reporting. The new reporting is available to read online right now.
If I had a fraction of the infinite grace of